Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Leverage Your Business Analytics Skills with Robotic Process Automation Initiatives and BPM. I'm your host, Liva Randribason, and on behalf of IIBA, thanks for joining us today. Today's webinar is a public event. It is designed to deliver practical resources for you as you continue to grow your skill set and deliver value within your organization. When you join IIBA, you become a member of an international association dedicated to developing and promoting the business analysis profession. Your IIBA membership gives you access to a vibrant BA community and resources to support your development and career growth. IIBA is a non-profit professional association serving the growing field of business analysis, and our goal is to unite a community of professionals to create better business outcomes. As the global thought leader and voice of the business analysis community, IIBA works to maintain global standards for the ongoing development of the practice and certifications. And this webinar today is brought to you by Signavio. Signavio is a business-to-business software as a service company based in Berlin that empowers mid-sized and large organizations worldwide to understand, improve, and transform their business processes at scale through its powerful platform. And it does this through the wisdom of the crowd and wisdom derived from data. The company was founded in 2009 and had grown significantly in a short amount of time. Today, it has more than 300 employees in 9 global offices. We would like to thank Signavio supporting IIBA and the business analysis community. Before I introduce today's speaker, I wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items. Today's presentation slides and additional resources can be found under the handouts section in the GoToWebinar control panel. And if you have any questions, you can enter those in the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel. Today's presenter is Leo Rodriguez. Leo Rodriguez is a technology leader with close to 20 years experience. Leo started his career as a business analyst and now works in designing, deploying, and administering RPA and BPM projects. He has a proven record of providing strategic guidance, connecting with target audiences, and achieving desired business results. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you for the introduction. How's everyone? I hope everyone's having a good time. And welcome to the presentation today. I'm going to get started. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the box. And at the end of the presentation, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I know I had a quick introduction there, but to kind of give everybody an idea, I really did start my career out as a business analyst for many years and worked for an RPA company, and now, of course, as well as Signavio in BPM. I have a real passion for process. I think that's something important to call out. As a business analyst, you really have to understand your clients' processes, understand requirements, and it was just a very good natural progression up into RPA and then BPM. A little bit of to cover a few things that are important, I think, for the demonstration today. A few definitions that are important. One is, what is BPM? And to me, what BPM is, and of course we can always run over to Google or anything and find definitions, but to me the important thing to call out is that BPM is a discipline. It's really a discipline that helps you manage, understand, discover, model, analyze, measure, and improve business processes, right? And so it's important to say, right, that it is a discipline, because it's not a technology, it's not a tool set, it's not, something you can't buy BPM, for example. It's business process management. So with that said, what is RPA? RPA refers to a software that can easily be programmed to basically mimic human actions on a computer, right? there's a big difference, as you can see, between RPA and BPM. One's a discipline, one's a software robot, right? One's a technology. And that's important to know. One, RPA and BPM play very well together. They're not really comparable, right? Because one is a discipline, one's a software. So you can't really compare side by side, but they play so well together, right? BPM, understanding your business processes, being able to model them, document them, improve your business processes. And a lot of what BPM is about is continuous process improvement. So I think that's one of the important highlights that we can get from what I have to say so far, right? A discipline cannot be compared to a software. They work together, they work hand in hand. Similar to, let's say, the skills of a business analyst. A business analyst skills in terms of what I felt was most important throughout my career, and knowing and working with other business analysts as well, is one, and you can see this on the left side, is business analysts require a variety of different skills. They have to be adaptable, right? They have to, be able to work with many different projects, whether it's a technology project or not. But business analysts need to be very versatile, right? And that's also the second highlight there, right? Bring their unique blend of skills. With that said, here are some of the highlights that I felt like were very key and important to a business analyst. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is we're going to talk about how this compares to the skills of someone in the RPA industry or in the BPM industry. So some of those, as you can see, it's very important to understand the objectives of the project, good verbal communication, and good listener. Most importantly, right, running stakeholder meetings is so critical, not only to the BA role, but as you're going to see throughout our presentation, this is something that's going to continue through RPA and through BPM as well. Documentation skills, analytical skills, and if we're talking about a technical business analyst, sound technology knowledge. Every client may be working with different systems, and that is something that's industry-wide. RPA, BPM, we need to be able to understand and know about those many different systems. In terms of a BPM, comparison, what, for somebody who works in the industry, and for example, in these roles, right, a pre-sales engineer, a professional services engineer, consultant, business analyst, and process engineers. These are some titles that you may see for someone who works in a BPM role. And what's important to know is the skills needed actually don't change. It's exactly the same skills of someone who is a business analyst. Why? Because when we're talking about process, we still need to understand objectives. We want to learn something about a specific process. Well, we need to meet with the stakeholders of that process. We need to be able to document that process. If we're going to improve the process, have good analytical skills, technical knowledge in terms of what software is involved in this process, and so on. So you can see a BPM role and a BA role, pretty much identical requirements. Not only that, it's very important to call out that in BPM, and again, it's a discipline. It's more than anything, not specifically a technology. We need those business analysts to do a bulk of the work in terms of understanding, documenting, communicating the processes to everyone as well. So that BA role does become very important and critical. Now I did switch the slide, as you guys can see, RPA roles and BPM roles, but nothing on the screen changed. And the reason for that is again, it's the same skill sets. RPA, anyone learning RPA, we do obviously have to learn the technology. We in any business, right? If we're going to switch a role to a new type of company or a new technology, we do need to understand, the new technology we're getting into. But in terms of the underlying skills required, we still are looking at the same skill sets. Again, if we're going to automate a process in RPA, we need to understand the objectives. We need to have some stakeholder meetings to understand the process from different areas. We need to be able to document that, and especially in RPA, there's an as is and to be difference, right? Because one was done manually, now it's being done automated. So we will need to have some of those documentation skills. And as you can imagine, those technology and analytical skills still play a big role. Now, I want to quickly cover some of the key players in RPA. Many may know these names already. UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism being the top of the chain, let's say, where they hold the bulk of the market in RPA. But some of the things and the term that everyone may not be familiar is RDA players. Now, robotic process automation is that P. In the industry, we know it as RDA, robotic desktop automation. And the difference between those two is the desktop automation tools are meant for the everyday worker. So this is an automation tool where everyone in the company can automate some of their tasks. And they're usually very simple. Win Automation, for example, is a drag and drop tool, and you can build some of your own automations. And Cryon is very similar. Cryon also, and we'll get into this a little further, also has a task mining tool. Part of the reason I bring these up is because maybe it's important also to know, where some of the future of RPA looks like. And in terms of my personal opinion, these desktop automation tools are going to play a much larger role, where every employee has this automation tool. And something that companies are always looking to do is increase their ROI. And in terms of ROI, we could either automate a enterprise process, and usually those are used. You will use UiPath Automation Anywhere or Blue Prism, or you have 500 employees, let's say, and all those 500 employees now have a tool on their computer, and each one of them becomes 15 to 20% more efficient. So I think one of the more other things to call out here is, especially with what's going on with COVID, if someone has an automation tool on their laptop they take home with them, that plays a big role now. That efficiency that we had in the office continues to go with the user because they're now working from home from their laptop. So I think it's key to call out, RPA has multiple paths. It has a very big future. There is more work from home now, and automation is something that's key to that. Now, in terms of BPM, some terms you may or may not know: process mining, process intelligence. Signavio is the leader in BPM, and we have a neat transformation suite, right? And we, part of the reason why I wanted to call this out, we spoke about those skill sets, right? We talk about, what does it take in these roles, and in understanding process is a key factor to all of this. And when we look at RPA, you may step back a little further, and we'll kind of go into that, but you may want to step back a little further to what we may call 30,000 feet, right? And have that top-down view of a process. And what you'll find when you use tools like a process mining tool or BPM tool, is by modeling these processes out, you're able to then say, these automation processes are just now seen as tasks versus a process as a whole. And I know it may sound confusing, but that will clear up as I go along as well. The second thing to really talk about is task mining. Task mining, a few players again, Fortress IQ, again, a leader and a partner of Signavio as well. But I think the important thing to know about task mining is it's very different than process mining. In process mining, we try to mine using data-driven tools to basically map out a process, analyze that process, measure KPIs. In terms of task mining, what we're doing is we're actually recording actions that a user takes on their computer. So we're able to map the process out by the user's actions. User actions for task mining again, and data-driven, database-driven for process mining. So I quickly mentioned that 30,000-foot view before, and I really always highlight this. Why? Because as a business analyst, sometimes, you know, a stakeholder may understand a piece of the puzzle. They might understand just, you know, how to perform the duties that they are assigned to. But the overall process as itself may require you to have a you know, a farther back view. So BPM will really take you to that level, right? We need to look at the whole process in its entirety. And sometimes in technology and RPA, we try to automate some of those automated manual steps that you take on a PC. But hey, what about a phone call? What if I have to, you know, part of the process is picking up the phone and calling a user up? That is not something we can automate, and we still want to be that. We still want that to be part of that a big picture, right? So it's very important to really look at a process, right, from that 30,000-foot view and understand the big objectives, and then work our way down. We'll kind of dig into that again. I'm going to cover a lot of the details that I'm kind of introducing here, but we'll cover a lot of those as well. So in terms of you know, day-to-day work and how do we actually do this, and my experience in the industry, what I find is that any company looking to either automate using RPA or really understand and improve their processes using BPM, it's really a transformation, right? It's a business transformation they're looking to achieve to improve their processes, whether it's using RPA or whether it's first starting with knowledge of the process and documenting that process, right, using BPM and BPM tools. So first, you know, as a business analyst, and this is, by the way, is a slide that's important to call out that, you know, it isn't modified, right, for our demonstration study. This is a real world how we usually try to see this. On the left side, you see that we start off with understand. So we understand how we currently operate. What does our process currently look like? What are the steps? Who are the stakeholders? What is the cost? How much time does it take? There's quite a bit of information that we really want to understand about our processes. So it always starts with the understand, or BPM. And we move over, it can go all the way to the right, which is improve, which is how we want to operate, the as is and the to be. Critical to you know, a transformation of a process. How that's done, data-driven process management, right? The two ways really, right? Data-driven process management, where we can take some of that data from the systems, take some of that data from the knowledge that we have about a process, right? Automatic discovery using some process mining or task mining tools, KPIs and dashboards. Signavio suite provides that for as an example. And we have live monitoring and alerting. That live monitoring and learning is key to the continuous improvement, right? So if we're going to monitor and improve our process continuously, we need to have some type of live monitoring on there. And then transformation, right? We're transforming a process. We always have to talk about the human center, the human aspect of it, that crowdsourced insights. We speak about those stakeholder meetings we have to hold, um, innovation and design, assessment and simulation, right? We need to assess, understand, be able to communicate those processes, collaborate with other users, collaborate with stakeholders. Sometimes it's external customers, but at the end of the day, the SMEs is where that real knowledge lives. So we look to really be able to hone our BA skills to improve this. So throughout this slide, this conversation, I hope you can see the importance of where the business analyst lies. This understanding, this documentation, the analytics, the KPIs, and how to communicate those, right? That human-centered aspect of process improvement is key. I'm going to go through a quick use case example to try to hone in on some of the topics that we've covered this far to really understand how it looks. So to give an example, I have a use case here, and this is a real use case from Signavio, where we have a top tier bank in the US. What's important to know about this is that the process that we're going to be looking at, which is customer onboarding, meaning I have a new customer, I want to onboard them, costs these banks millions of dollars a year. The reason for that is because the process just to onboard a customer is very lengthy. And I have the example here of, for this use case, what that looked like. So initially, we had to gather some client data. Then we had to understand the jurisdictional data, right? If the customer's in a specific country, whether it be US, Canada, overseas, Europe, we need to understand that jurisdictional data because in terms of finances or in this case loans, the process may be very different, or the laws may be very different, the documentation may be different. So we really have to analyze and understand that as well. Then we have to do a client assessment and credit due diligence, right? Is this client credit worthy, or is this business, right? We're doing a business loan. Is this business even a real business, and so on, right? There's quite a bit of due diligence. There's compliance, legal due diligence that needs to happen, and finally the provisioning of the client. So because this process involves so many steps and so many people, it's very error prone. Error prone leads to high risk, and risk leads to loss of money, usually for the companies. It's very ineffective and it has a poor customer experience, right? Because of the time frame and the amount of work that needs to get done many times may be a turnoff for a customer. And last, that expensive, right? It's very expensive to do this. And that's where this leads to $100 million per year, specifically for the client we were working with. So how does that look? So what we initially did is we start off by analyzing and understanding what the bank's customer journey looks like. So what you're seeing here is an example of a customer journey. What we did is, as a business analyst, as an analyst, right, you want to understand what a typical customer journey looks like. So we take our knowledge, we speak to some customers, we do some research, and what we come up with is understanding that in the first 3 steps of this process, there is a discovery that a bank's client would go through. They do some research online, as an example. They find that, okay, I need a loan, and I usually go online and see, what catches my eye, what's important to me. There's an awareness factor, right? That says, is this company reputable? Is somebody that I heard? Is it a good match for my needs? And then there's that discovery where you study maybe about not only about the bank, but also what types of loans they provide, and is it right for me? Now, after I've decided that this is the right institution for me, I will send an application. the bank can then accept or decline that application. If I accept, there's an offer. Once there's an offer, the customer can accept my offer or decline it. And then there's, as you can see, call after the offer. There's actually a phone call interaction that happens between the bank and the customer. And that's one of those elements that I like to call out, right? Because a phone call to the customer, it's a human interaction. This is not something that we never really want to automate. But it is still part of this process. We want to be able to document that process. Then customer accepts offer finally, and then it's finalized. Then the customer gets their loan. So we started the journey, as you can see, by understanding the bank's client's process. This takes heavy work from a business analyst. It takes understanding, learning the client's needs, and so on. And that's the only way we can achieve a complete understanding. Lastly, we look to enhance what we learn by, for example, understanding average time. So you'll see here at the bottom of the screen, there is average time from acceptance. It's about 2 days. Average time from acceptance to first offer on average is about 2 days as well. Then we want to take this one step further. We then want to understand the bank's process. What are the steps the bank goes throughout this? The example you see here today is a process mining example using Signavio's tool. We use the tool to really map out what an employee goes through or what is the roadmap for the customers as they go through the process. So as you can see here, there's a start point where it's create application. That's where we start, right? We're not really too much involved in the decision-making process, so we start with create application. Then there's that submit application, do an automatic check, complete the application, accept application, and so on. And I'm only showing a part of this because this process is very lengthy. So for demonstration purposes, we'll cut it off here. But what's important is by using process mining, by using different tools, we're able to say, hey, I found a few things that are troublesome. And you can see that highlighted in yellow. The complete application on average takes 1 day and 4 hours. And that is in time, total time. So it could be multiple days, right? But in terms of hours, it's taking about 28 hours to complete that. The accept application process is also taking 13 hours in total hours. And that is a little bit troublesome. We're saying, hey, these tasks here are taking way too long. And if we're looking to improve our process, let's take a look at why. Let's take a look a little bit further and understand what, why that's going. Then we say, we have these RPA tools that maybe can help us automate some of those. So as you can see on this screen, what we're doing in here is, as a business analyst, we're going to understand where most of the time is taking, and then we're going to look at, is this an automation candidate? We also take a look at the cost of the process, or average cost of the process in each step. And as you can see from the screen here, cost in dollars, we've decided that there's a lot of time here, and it does involve a system that is very repetitive. And we can now say, yes, this is an automation candidate. Yes, this is an automation candidate. Yes, this is an automation candidate, and so on. And then by automating these and using robots, we can pretty much take our cost from a dollar value to almost zero. So we are going to say, okay, these are now going to be zeroed because we're going to put RPA into this. At the end of the day, we are able to analyze so far the process and everything and come up with a total savings of $86,000 a month. And this is monthly costs. It's important to call out. So for this specific customer, by analyzing all the process, documenting it, understanding it, getting some more data feedback, there was a lot of communication that happened with stakeholders, customers, different people who were involved were able to then come back and even give an estimated total cost of in savings for the bank. Our next step was then to come in and actually put some robots in, right? We're able to come in and say, okay, create application was automated, accept application was automated, and most importantly, when we really talk about BPM, when we talk about RPA and these tool sets, we talk about continuous improvement. So what's important to know about continuous improvement is we're able to now rerun all the analytics that we did on it, speak to the stakeholders once again, maybe 3 months later, maybe 6 months later, a year later, and say, hey, how is the process now? How does it look now? What are the time frames now? You know, and look for further improvements that we can make to the process. Maybe, yes, now that we took the longest processes, for example, create application took a day, 28 hours. Now we automate it. Let's take a look at maybe something that only takes 12 hours. Can we improve that one? What does that look like? And by doing this, we're really able to make informed data-driven decisions. Those data-driven decisions are key, right? It's not just someone coming out with an idea or something like that, especially for a bank, right? Where cost and money is the biggest value. And so I hope that you can see so far the value of a business analyst in not only, let's say, the documentation aspect of it, but the analysis of the understanding of a process as a whole, and how, for example, here you see these little robots, how RPA as a technology plays a role. One of those things I mentioned earlier is that 30,000 foot, right? 30,000 foot is this whole model. RPA, when you look at a process as a whole, RPA is actually is just a task at this point. This is one of these tasks being automated, but there is a process within this create application, right? There's systems, there's multiple databases, for example, there's clicks, there's a lot that needs to be automated and documented just within this create application aspect of it. At the same here, application accepted. And as you can imagine, yes, I didn't show the full process map here, so there were other automation candidates that we were able to automate. But again, key to the success of the process was at the end of the day was a business analyst, was the recording, was the understanding, choosing the right tools is another key factor as well. As a business analyst, you always want to say, okay, we have a solution, we want to use RPA, but which RPA tool do we want to use? They're different. They have different benefits, different cost structures, right? And it could lead to even a bigger conversation as we go along. Those are all important key factors that would play into the decision of process improvement and how to improve the process as well. And with that said, some of the questions that you may have is, how can I get started? And I think one of the things I want to highlight today is make sure you check out in the GoToMeeting handouts section. You'll see that 7-step guide that we've created, and that is a good place to start. If you're looking to get started with RPA, that is a good place to get started. Also understanding the different technologies, different companies that are out there, what is also very important. But the 7-step guide will give you a good way to prepare and understand some of the benefits and how to go about learning about RPA. I did put up here on my screen my LinkedIn and my email in case you guys have further questions. But I think at this point we would like to open up and see if you guys have some questions for me.
Thank you, Leo, for this great presentation. One thing that I wrote down was a discipline cannot be replaced by software. I think that's right. And definitely business analysis professionals have a seat at the table when it comes to RPA initiatives. So our first question is around RPA and BPM. Is RPA and BPM difficult to learn?
That's a good question. So they are in general not difficult to learn, and it will be dependent on the type of role, right, that you're working in. But being, for example, that they are both involved in process, and a business analyst, many times just, the skills that you come with is understanding some type of process, whether it's technical or not. It's very easy for a business analyst, especially somebody with that maybe comes with technical knowledge. It's very easy for a business analyst to step up into any of the roles as well, or just jump as a business analyst, right, in an RPA company or a BPM company. The skill sets are there, as I covered earlier on. The skill sets are the same, so it would be very easy to jump in.
How about thank you. How about BPM and process reengineering? Are they the same, or how different are they?
In essence, there are process reengineering, right, is a part of the discipline for BPM. So BPM is the overarching business process management, right, and process reengineering is maybe one of your goals. So in essence, we say that BPM is that whole discipline, and I may not be looking to re-engineer my whole process. I might just be looking to document it. Let's say document my process for new employees to come in, so that when a new employee comes in, they're able to read the documentation, see the charts, and understand what their role looks like. So there's different reasons really why we would use BPM.
Great, thank you. The next question is around, so as a business analysis professional, domain knowledge applies to BA skills. Is the domain knowledge also relevant to RPA?
Yes, I would say yes and no. So the more knowledge you have about a specific topic is always going to be a benefit to you, right? But domain knowledge, in a sense, may be easier to come by in the real world. And an example of that, I'll give a quick example. Right, I worked a lot with the finance industry. Finance industry was probably one of the first adopters of RPA, and I had to pick up and learn a lot about it. But you kind of learn as you go, because you'll never learn everything, every action. We're really digging into every step, right? We're digging into every step that it takes to complete the actions, and there is a lot of learn as you go. So customer onboarding, order to cash, procure to pay, those are terms to a lot of people. And as long as you understand, let's say, the gist of the process, understand what it is, that's really what it would take. Because from there, a good business analyst is going to need to really dig in, document, and understand every detail of the process anyway.
Makes sense. So we do have a lot of questions around before automation. The question that revolves around, do we need to optimize a manual process before automating it?
That's a good question. So that is going to be a decision that you can only make after understanding the process, and this is where BPM comes in. We first need to have the as-is model, understand the as-is model. We can use tools. For example, Signavio provides a tool called simulation, where I can simulate different scenarios. If I make a change to my process, what effect does that have? So do I have to change it, improve my manual process first? Hey, let's simulate what it looks like if I do that. Let's simulate what if I just skip that and go straight to RPA. With BPM also, maybe prior to RPA, you may say, hey, our issue may be the software we're using. We may need to just replace our CRM for something better that fits our needs specifically. We may need to build our own homegrown system. You know, there's different reasons or different methods of actually improving the process. So it's that the answer to the question, the short answer to that question, in my opinion, would be it's very dependent on the scenario or the process that we're looking at today.
Great. That's a good comment. How do I know? How do I know if there's no dollar? How do I know if a process is worth automating, and especially if there's $0 value associated with it?
Okay, so there's two reasons why you may want to automate a process, and dollar value maybe one, but the other one is going to be time and resources. Does this process really take too long? If it doesn't, it's not really, is it really worth it automating, right? Is it really repetitive? Is it something that that takes me a long time to do? There's you know, I have to simply upload 20 files into a system. That's not something that's worth automating. It's only 20 files. But if you say every day I get 20 files that I have to upload into the system, I have to do this every single day. That is something now worth automating. So the one thing to remember with RPA is repetitive manual tasks, right? And there's a rules-based one too, but repetitive is key. So is it something that I have to do all the time, repetitively, over and over and over, right? You're really consuming a lot of time. The money factor will lead into what comes later, right? The money factor comes in. Okay, I'm now free to do something else, and sometimes you have to look at it that way and not really dollar value.
Expanding on that, is there a list of standard benefits for RPA other than financial cost saving? Are there any benefits such as quality, compliance, and security? So that's the number one question. And how do you identify those and realize these benefits at an organizational and team level?
Oh, very good. So there are multiple, and risk and compliance, especially in the finance industry, risk and compliance is going to be a huge factor. Mitigating risk, a lot of banks are audited as well. There's a whole audit factor that goes in the finance industry. So when looking at auditing and risk and compliance, there is a you know, that decrease in risk because robots don't make mistakes, period. That is a rule that we can call right now. Robots do not make mistakes. They perform the same actions every single time, and that's going to mitigate a lot of the risk. Secondly, if a process is built properly, you can not only run the process itself, but you can also log the process. You can document the process using the robot itself. Those logs are going to be key to future compliance audits, and that is an added benefit to the process itself, that compliance and risk aspect of it. Secondly is I don't always like to talk about ROI, right? The money factor, right? I always like to stay away from that. One, it's very hard to calculate actual ROI. We can estimate it. To calculate actual ROI is very difficult, but it's normally going to be off. Maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. It is what it is. What I really do like to talk about is the time and resource savings that we get out of it. And of course, as mentioned even in the question, right, that security and compliance. In terms of, I'll address the security one as well, by the way. I think security isn't a huge factor in terms of robot and RPA. RPA itself as a technology, at least the bulk of it is really automating what a human does on a computer. So in terms of security. If a human can do it, so can the robot. So that there's no added, uh, let's say there's no added or reduction in security, in my personal opinion, because I can automate a robot to break into something or to do something it's not supposed to as well.
Great. Can you expand a little bit more on RPA versus RDA provider? How do you decide which one is the right solution, and when would you select one over the other?
Sure, I can answer that for sure. So in terms of I'll expand on the question just a little bit as well. In terms of RPA players, UiPath Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and of course there's others. Softomotive, for example, is also an RPA player. They have a little bit of both. In terms of those, they're one of the reasons why you would choose one over the other could be staff experience. Does any of my staff have experience with any of these tool sets? That's a key, in my opinion. Why? Because you're going to your learning curve is going to come down. So anybody who works for you already knows how to use the tool. There you go. It's real easy to come in. At the end of the day, they all will achieve the same goal. How quickly can I achieve those goals is going to be a factor. Two is uh, I always like to ask this of any vendor of anything that I'm going to purchase. What does their future roadmap look like? And does it align with my future roadmap? Are they going to invest in AI, machine learning? How much are they going to do? Because as an example, I may or may not be interested. The company may be focused on that, and I'm focused on different areas of improvement, for example. So in terms of the RPA players, it's important to know they will all get you to where you want to go. What is best for me is really going to be a factor of a company itself. Now, in terms of RDA versus RPA, that is a good question. And it's a difficult one to kind of answer because I have my own personal opinion again, and again, my belief is that RPA is going to is always going to be there for sure, but it's going to a lot more of it is going to be RDA, right? We're going to allow my employees to automate their own tasks on a day-to-day. So the decision of which system to use and how to use it, again, is just it's a use case question. Is it something that I want to run on my user's machine so that they can trigger the process when they're ready? Or is it something that is a back-end process and I can simply just hold this on and run it on a server somewhere, right? Or is it a backend process? Is there financial information that needs to be secure and no one has access to, right? So those are the types of questions I think that we need to look at in term for RPA for sure. Use case, hey, let my employees do this. There's 1,000 employees, and by the way, I've seen it. I've worked with it, right? There's a call center, and I have um, 500 employees in the call center, and when something happens, I need to have the employee type something in, take that they type in and process it for them, as an example. That's a good use case for RDA. If it's something on the back end, hey, when XYZ happens, create a new account for the user. Go into the screens and create. That does not need to happen in front of my screen. We can offload that work into a server.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, in my opinion, the differences between those RDA and RPA.
Thank you. In terms of RPA initiatives, so you talked a little bit about that. Where do you think and at what stage would the project requirements gathering take place? Is it right at the beginning? Can you expand on that as well?
Okay, sure. My personal opinion is always start from BPM. Always start modeling your process. Use a BPMN tool, understand your processes. This is always where you want to start. Number one reason, and I've done another webinar recently on the failures of RPA. And the number one reason RPA could fail at a company is for lack of understanding of the process. In my own experience in implementing RPA, I can't mention how many numerous times I would walk into a business and the stakeholders don't understand the process. Reason being, because usually a process involves multiple stakeholders. They usually only know a piece of the puzzle. And then there's always the technology aspect. So you need somebody from technology in there to kind of explain, where, what the database and data is going on and so on. So a lack of understanding of the business process will lead to potential failure of a business process, of an automation of a process. One, in time and ROI, in execution, and a lot of the money, if we are going to look at it on a money factor, a lot of the money gets burnt in fixing the process after. If you ever work in RPA, you'll hear a term that a lot, and the term is called exceptions. Every process has exceptions. Oh, you automate this process, but when this happens, we have to do it this way. And normally, that's where the mistakes start to happen. No process is 100% of the time straight through. And understanding those exceptions, those if-thens, is going to be critical, right, to automating a process. Otherwise, there's going to be a failure on it.
Mm-hmm.
So always start from the beginning, documenting, understanding.
Wonderful. Talking about Agile, with the shift to Agile and Scrum, where does RPA fit into the Scrum process and the artifacts in Scrum?
I don't believe in the Agile process. I worked in development for a long time, and I am a waterfall man.
Okay.
But I worked in Agile environments for a long time. But that the Agile methodology is about we break everything out, and we can continuously work in sprints and so on. The waterfall model says I want to understand, document everything first. So if we are talking about the agile, an agile environment, we even better though. We start with the business analysts and understanding, and I think that the presentation today should prove that as well. We always start with the business analyst and documentation. We can always break everything out later, but let's come back to the basics of process improvement, which is let's model out our tool. Let's use a tool, right? Let's use Signavio to process to model our process. Let's use this again and not to plug in Signavio, but again, Signavio will model it out. We'll share it with our resources using collaboration tools, and all the stakeholders can come together and make comments, improve, understand the process, and then we can move into, hey, break everything out into sprints and so on.
Great. We have a few questions around definitions and wanted clarifications around intelligence process automation and the difference between RDA and an attended robot.
RDA is okay. I can explain that. Okay. Let me start with the attended robot. Attended robot is a robot that's going to perform the actions itself. So it's a robot that will perform the actions, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you built it yourself. RDA refers to a tool where you can build it yourself, whether you're recording or manually building it. I found a process. I have a tool on my computer that I can build it out. So attended and unattended automation simply refer to the robot itself that's performing the actions. I hope that's clear. And if it's not, whoever asked that question, feel free to post again. And then, what was the first half of that question again? If you can.
Difference between intelligence process automation and RDA.
Sure. Intelligent process automation refers to companies who are now using AI and machine learning for process automation, and but for the bulk of the industry, from what I understand, um, that really refers to document reading. So in terms of intelligent automation, we're talking about able to read scanned documents, interpret it, and then using that data, they're able to perform RPA-based actions. So that intelligence part of it is some type of AI or ML that happens first, and then, or not necessarily first, but let's just say first, and then based on the data, or the gathering or the analytics that happen with that AI and ML, then we're able to run some automations on it.
Great. A few more. We have a few more questions around the tools and Signavio's tools itself. Can you recommend tools or software to learn to work on BPM?
Sure. One of the benefits, for example, of Signavio, and there are competitors as well, but one of the benefits of Signavio, BPM, again, is a discipline, right? It's a discipline of process improvement, definitely requires some knowledge of process, and BA skills are just so critical to that. It really is. But one of the benefits, for example, of a tool, and this is very similar to the answer that we spoke about, how do you choose an RPA vendor? Signavio provides you the ability to say, okay, we're going to stick to the BPMN standards when we're modeling out our processes, and I want to learn more about it, or I made a mistake. You have the ability to have a guide, check your work, give you guidance, stick to the standards. It's all built in, right? It has a learning section to it as well. So my suggestion would always be, hands-on. A lot of people are, learn that way as well. Learn hands-on, learn with the tool set, make mistakes, and be able to fix them.
Perfect. Is there a community version of Signavio? I'm assuming Signavio RPA. And can you also explain how the pricing works? Is it a subscription?
It is a subscription model, but we do have a free trial. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But we do have a free trial that you can get to know the tool setting.
Perfect. We have quite a few questions, and again, we only have 3 minutes left. But if we didn't get through to your question, we will take those and answer to you directly. How do you? I guess this is more of a final food for thought question. How do you overcome the fear of people being replaced by robots, and hence apprehension to divulging process information?
Oh, that's a good one. It's never going to happen. Humans will never be replaced by robots. People may be reskilled, but you will never, you'll never totally complete it. It's been, in my opinion, the biggest misconception of RPA since the beginning of RPA. Most of what's being automated are tasks that humans shouldn't be doing anyway, in the sense of sitting there moving data all day, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, as an example. That's not an effective use of a human being. Many tasks require knowledge, require understanding of a specific process, understanding of a specific client. So the reality is that's really my one answer is that fear. There's always been that kind of fear and question about replacing humans, and the reality of it is it's not really a valid case.
Great final words. And once again, Leo, we really appreciate you taking the time to answer all those questions and sharing your knowledge. And again, this has been very helpful and useful for our community. Everyone, if you are looking for a copy of the presentation will be, and the recording will be available within 7 to 10 business days on our webinar archives on our IIBA website. And if you do have any questions, you do have Leo's information here on the screen, as well as additional information in the handout, which is about the 7 steps guide to RPA. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you, Leo, again. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great day, great afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.